All right. Hey, what's up, everyone? This is a quick brap rant. I have a special guest with me tonight, Italian Clowns from Four Guys Recorders. Clowns, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, man? Pleasure being here.
Absolutely, man. I wanted to get you on with this topic because it's in regards to Phil Spencer talking about toxicity on Xbox Live and that Xbox Live is not a platform for free speech. And it's interesting, man. I've been on Xbox Live since 2002, and remember the days of being a beta tester before Microsoft had a lot of the things they have in place now to kind of regulate and a lot of people to report people who act offensively on Xbox Live. And I remember back then, man, it was kind of a free for all, man. It was I'm not gonna lie to you, man. There was a lot of geez, man, racist comments, man. I mean, just people saying things that were just like, you know, just not nice things, man. That's the best way I can say it. Just a lot of disparaging comments and things, and I know that's kind of been a party for Microsoft to kind of address and to address those issues and make Xbox Live a platform where people can come on live and really enjoy the experience, man. Because I think that at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And I'm not surprised that they're kind of taking this approach because, again, this is a service. This is a thing that they make money off of, and I know that as Xbox Live beta testers, this is some of the feedback that we gave to Xbox Live. That, hey, you know what? There's racist comments being made. There needs to be some kind of tool or reporting mechanism to report people, and they eventually implemented that in the early days of Xbox Live. But Clowns, man, I'm glad that you could join us, man, because I know you have some some thoughts on this because people have questioned and have said on Twitter, as you know, because you respond to this, that this is in violation of our free speech. And so, is this in fact a violation of as a violation of free speech for Americans?
It's definitely not a violation of free speech because it's a private sector. It's a private service. It's a service that you pay for. It's not provided by taxpayers. It's not provided by the United States government. It's not on public property. This is a for-profit corporation on their own property, and they have the right to put into effect rules and regulations. Just because you feel like that you're American and you have free speech rights does not mean you can go into a private area and say whatever you want in a corporation or corporate services. That's not how free speech works. Free speech is for public land and public property as long as it doesn't violate anyone else's civil rights.
And that's a great point because it's not really violating our civil rights per se. It's not the government that's saying that we can't voice our opinions or we can't, uh, you know, if we choose to, rally in a public space. And, if we want to don white hoods, you can still do that at this time of age. Although I don't condone that, I wouldn't do that. But you can still do those things. And to your point about public space, I mean, there's been many Supreme Court decisions over the limitations of free speech. And I think the gentleman you were talking to on Twitter, I mentioned him. I say, well, he was saying, oh, well, it's you guys are snowflakes, or you guys are, freedom of speech is freedom of speech. I'm like, no, it's limited. I mean, and to your point, you can't go into a movie theater, and this was actually a Supreme Court case. You can't go into a movie theater and scream fire and have people abruptly get up and walk out. Maybe I think some people got injured in this case. And the gentleman who did this said, "Oh well, I'm exercising my right of free speech." And no, free speech is limited. I think when you violate, you know, the safety of others and the ability for people to have pleasant experiences, then yeah, your rights limited. And I don't agree with. I'm not going to name any names here, clowns, but I think you saw the gentleman who said that, well, we might as well be like Russia and China, What do you say to that? Those kinds of responses?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in America, we see this all the time, right? Many different social groups or uh, groups in the racial divide, they have protests on public property and public land, and as long as that they don't incite violence, they get a permit to do so under free speech. But if we really had no free speech, then what takes place in Tiananmen Square in China is what would take place in the U.S. every time a protest or march or parade happened. That I mean, we have free speech in America.
Well,
We just
Clown, so why don't you? Because it's funny. We talk about Tenement Square, and you and I are old enough to remember. But I think a lot of times, like I feel like we're dealing with a newer generation of gamers that don't have, um, I guess, lack that, that historical reference point of Tenement Square. Like remind people what happened because I don't think a lot of people remember. Like it's funny. We talked about this before we went online. Like I remember that, like to my core. I will never forget watching the news show that student. Remember the student waving his hands?
yeah.
I mean, like what? So I mean, go ahead. I mean, you can tell the viewers about that. Like what went down.
As far as I remember from all the news clips I saw growing up too, Enrique, it was basically a lot of Chinese students that were protesting the communist control
Yep.
in parts of China and the rules and regulations and the strictness of the laws. And a lot of the students were peaceful, nonviolent, did not have weapons. And the Chinese government was not happy at all with this protest, did not like it getting on public TV, did not like it being aired, and they sent in what would be considered like a military SWAT team with tanks and shields and tear gas, weapons, and they unloaded onto the crowd with tear gas, and they even had a tank run over a dude.
He was a
And
student. He was a student. I mean,
yeah,
he was a college
yeah,
student, young, and I'll never forget that he was waving his hands. And I remember the news. I mean, so I saw this live, and I never forget this. And maybe it was like Peter Jennings or something. God's crazy. That's how old I am. Peter Jennings has been dead for a while. But I remember like Peter Jennings saying like, "Oh my God, is this tank going to stop?" And it stopped for like a second, and then it ran over the student.
yeah. And it was a message that the government was sending to the people to disperse, that they didn't appreciate the protest. And that is what a country would look like with no free speech.
You know, and I bring that up because, and I'm not going to mention any names here, but there was a gentleman we both know, who brought this up. I'm like, no, that's bullshit. This isn't Russia. This isn't fucking China.
No,
Like there's no. I mean, like there's no KGB. The KGB is not infiltrating Phil Spencer right now, like fucking taking him like to some like some place in Siberia right now, right? That's not happening. I mean,
no.
like that's this is what really pisses me off is when people like give these extreme comparisons of us to China and Russia. Like that's not us. That's not America. I mean, look, the United States does not have um uh, a perfect past per se. I mean, you and I talked about some of the checkered past or the checkered past of the United States in terms of its colonization and whatnot, and its treating of immigrants. But that's besides the point. I mean, but for people to sit there and say that this is an example with Xbox Live saying that hey, Xbox Live is not a platform for free speech. I think for people to come out there and say that, oh well, this is just like they're treating Americans like they treat people in Russia and China. I'm like, no, are you fucking kidding me? Like, eh, eh, any Xbox Live gamers out there getting run over by tanks?
Yeah,
No.
and Xbox Live is not putting up a barrier between East and West Germany, telling you if you cross, you're gonna get shot. I mean, this is there's no comparison. This is just a company that wants to regulate and make it a safe place for everyone.
Exactly, but the thing is, they have the right as you talk about U.S. rights, right? We talk about freedom of speech, but United States was also built on the premise of capitalism, right?
Yep.
Where companies have the right to make money or do things that that aren't necessarily tied to the government, um, but Microsoft as a corporation has a right to say, hey, you know what? We want to provide a platform where we're charging people money. We want this platform to be safe for people. We want people to enjoy their experience. And so I find it disingenuous to gamers when they say, oh, well, this is an infringement on freedom of speech. And I'm thinking to myself, well, is it really? No, it's not. It's not about it. I mean, so I just, this is the part that frustrates me about gamers. Like, like we want certain freedoms, but then we don't want certain freedoms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
like you and I, like clowns, we've kind of disagreed on DM about the whole Call of Duty thing, the more recent Call of Duty, right?
yeah.
Um, and there's gamers that agree with you. There's gamers that agree with me that say, you know what, some gamers say, you know what, it's we don't want Call of Duty to censor certain aspects of this game because it may bring about censorship and there's a lack of creative freedom. Where there's people like me that say, yeah, well, when is pushing the envelope too far, whatever. I mean, but we don't want. But why would you want to censor um, the ability for people to have fun, for the people to have a good experience? And so, like, I wonder, clowns, like, do people understand like that this isn't about freedom of speech as much as it is to create a safe environment? And I don't
I
know, like for me, like out of human decency, wouldn't you want to create a safe environment for your fellow gamer?
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused between free speech and hate speech. And I think a lot of people that are arguing for free speech on Xbox want to be able to use hate speech when they get mad in Call of Duty or something without getting banned. But sorry, man, that's toxic. You can't go around telling people to do things themselves, hurt themselves, or call them a bunch of names that are not appropriate. We still, in a sense, we still have free speech. Xbox ain't going to go ahead and ban you because you're in a party chat and you're like, man, I wish Trump didn't get elected, or man, I wish Obama didn't get elected. Xbox is not going to care about that. What they care about is when you use your speech to infringe upon someone else's rights and harass them, target them, or hurt them verbally. I mean, that is wrong. And just because we're an American doesn't mean you could do it everywhere you go.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, Phil Spencer has talked about gaming as being inclusive for everyone, and I'm telling you, clowns. I mean, I was there in 2002 before you could even report, um, like people like being like bad. I mean, like I remember, and you know, um, people dropped the N word a lot, or people would refer to you as being queer, but not using that word, right? And there was a lot of that, man. And I'm telling you, man, I was surprised, like on Xbox Live, like hearing the amount of racism at the time. And this goes back to the OG Xbox clowns. I was surprised, man. I mean, you'd have people that were just off their rocker. They
Yeah,
would
there
say,
a lot
I
of
mean,
toxic hate speech that there was no place for in general.
and it was, what's funny? It wasn't like even adults all the time. It was kids sometimes.
Yeah. I still play with kids on Rainbow Six Siege that get very toxic, and they've been censored, I think, 6 or 7 times already for how mad they get online and going into lobbies and yelling at
Yeah,
people. It's only a matter of time before they're perma banned. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we see it even with today's generations. I see Innate in the chat, and I
yeah.
guess,
I was gonna go to that. But go ahead, man.
and I think he's looking at this like, it's not about being safe. People should be able to say what they want and whatnot. But I mean, that's not true. You can't just go in there and tear somebody apart because you're angry with them. You're jealous that they're better than you. You got killed by them in Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege, and you're just mad, so you just want to mouth off to them. I mean, you wouldn't do that in person, would you? Would you walk into Walmart customer service and every time somebody got you upset, would you mouth off in person, or
But
would you
hey,
hold
but
your
I mean,
speech
but
because you don't
clowns,
want to get
people do that
arrested?
though. People do that though at Walmart. I mean, I've seen it happen at Walmart where
Yeah,
people
but
get upset. Yeah,
that's a small percent of the population. I think.
yeah,
I think if you took the big pool of gamers that are toxic online and you put them in Walmart or any other public place, I bet you that not even 0.05% of them would say something if they got upset.
yeah. But I guess for me, like, so I see Nate's comment, and Nate says, "If you need to be coddled, you ain't going to be playing with us anyway." Never have ever got online and thought I wasn't safe. Sounds like offended culture of today's online fragility. And look, I get that there is this culture of outrage, and and there's this idea of people being fragile. But I think what's happening is you're having, and in clowns, I think it goes back to, you and I have, I think, have experienced that culture of change, if you will. Where one culture experiences things differently than another culture. I think we're going to that. I think as I'm 42, and so how I grew up is very much different than I think how my kids are going to grow up. My dad didn't necessarily give me a hug or a pat in the back per se, but I do that for my son, right? But that goes back to just, I think, a difference of cultural norms. I think every culture, every generation evolves, right? I think if you look at racism, racism was in this country, in the United States, was systematic, was very acceptable. I think you look at today, it's not something that people excuse. I think people frown upon it. Um, and even sexism and women's rights. I mean, people frown upon the fact that women are paid 75 cents to the dollar for doing the same job as men, where maybe my mom's generation, my dad's generation, they're okay with that. And so I think, to Nate's point, I think just because it may have been a norm for us, you know generational norm, doesn't mean that it's necessarily right today, and that the generation of today may not be okay with that. And I think that, I think it's okay to create a safe place for people to go on and play video games. I don't want people to sit there and be racist, and because I don't enjoy that. Like, I never enjoy. I mean, like, I've been called, like, I remember being, people being, oh, where you're from, and I'm like, oh, I'm Latino. I'm volunteering that information on Xbox Live in 2003, and then people were like, "Oh, you fucking Mexican, go back to your country, you suck balls, whatever, blah blah blah," because I owned them in Wolfenstein. I mean, like that, like that's not cool. Like, who wants to experience that? You
Yeah,
know? I
I
mean,
I
even though it's
wouldn't.
online, like, and I don't know those people for, I don't want that. Like, that's not what I expect to when I'm playing a video game. Because, um, correct me if I'm wrong, Clowns. I mean, like, isn't video games, at least in my mind, video games and art have always been a kind of escape from reality in some ways?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had my experiences too, Enrique, even going back to like the OG Xbox. I'm Italian American, but people would refer to me as a wetback. They would tell me to go back to Mexico with my ancestors.
Jesus.
Um, and then I've also been told to get back on the banana boat to Africa because I'm
Jesus.
Italian American. So that kind of speech was not cool with me. And I see what Nate's saying. He muted them, and I guess that's the only option that we had back then. But it should not happen to today's generation going forward if we could prevent it. My daughter should not get on there and have someone say that to her or start talking about her in a demeaning manner sexually or something, because that a lot of that happens. But these children should not experience that, because then they're going to grow up and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to say, you know what, I experienced it, so it's okay. But it's not okay. The
You know
cycle
what?
needs to break.
That's a great point, Clowns. And what's interesting is that there's organizations and companies that have, um, in the past, like, you go back to the civil rights movement. There's business leaders that took the side of the civil rights movement, right? And that wanted society to change. And Microsoft's a big organization. And Microsoft, if you look at their mission, vision, and values, their and their what Microsoft now kind of how they look at themselves as their relationship to the community. Because you remember, Microsoft had a kind of a bad reputation as being a monopolistic company that was doing things that necessarily weren't ethical prior to the release of Xbox. Um, but now, I mean, they look at themselves as a partner in the community, right?
I think Satya Nadella said that.
Yeah, he did, and he's right, and he's smart for saying that because of Microsoft's previous reputation. And and these companies, I mean, when they say, "Hey, look, you know what, guys, this is our company culture. This is who we are, and this is how we want the communities and the people, our customers, to look to look at us like or as. Um, we want to be partners in the community. We want to be an ethical partner. We want the community to look at us as as a company that does right for consumers. I mean, these are things that Microsoft holds true to themselves as an organization, which is why I was actually, and this is a side note, why I was very critical on Shannon Loftus's her comments on Twitter about calling somebody a fat ass. Um, but as an organization, I mean, this kind of embodies Microsoft that they want to be positive partners in the community, and so I think that that's a good thing. I think anytime a company wants to make life better or make society better, I don't think that's a bad thing. And I just don't understand why people speak against that. I just don't. I can't wrap my mind around that, man. I really can't. I think anytime that we can do things that are good for our fellow gamer, and do things that are inclusive, I don't think that's a bad thing, man. I really don't. So I'm just surprised, like clowns. I'm telling you, man. I don't want to name his name. I'm tempted to, because you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
But I was really surprised to see that from him, man, because he's someone who's been pro Microsoft for such a long time.
Yeah, and it's just the whole idea that he was confused about free speech. It just makes this more mind-boggling because we get back to it in circles, but it's you don't have free speech on a service that you pay for because you don't own a portion of that service. Just like you don't have free speech through your ISP. If you go on a message board and say some really racist, threatening stuff, I'm sure that somewhere down the line your ISP is going to turn over your information to the FBI or the local state police, and you're going to get a knock at your door. Same
Yeah.
thing, you know,
Well, we've seen
same
the issue
exact
with
thing.
swatting. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of this toxicity leads to violence. You may not think it. You may think, okay, well, I'm behind a microphone. I'm safe. I'm okay. But there are people out there that would take it further. And maybe, in general, Microsoft's trying to prevent all of that, prevent the violence that could escalate from this, prevent the hatred or the self-harm that could escalate from this, or the hurt feelings. I mean, there's so many things that this could lead to. It's just not words to some people.
And that's the thing. Like I think, like we've seen this in the gaming community, the whole swatting thing, right?
Yep.
And that's an issue. And I think sometimes people think that they're immune to consequences because we're they're they're communicating in the digital space, so therefore it's not real. It's not. There's no repercussions, and that's not true.
That's far from the truth. I mean, your ISP, whether they tell you or not, they know everything you do. It's a matter of whether they look at the logs or not, or if they have the means to look at the logs, but they can see everything. It's just
No, they can. They can see like your chat. They can see everything. You're right.
your cookies, where you've been.
Yeah.
Even advertisers look at that information and sell it. So, I mean, there's really no, it's not a personal space. It's not a free anonymity place. You're not anonymous. You are a person with an identification, and people can find you.
Yeah. That's a great point, man. I want to go to Nate in live chat. By the way, Nate, I always appreciate your comments in the comment section, man. I mean, we don't always agree, but that's okay, man. Like, I always say on BRAP, we're all about difference of opinions, so long as we're respectful about expressing those opinions. But Nate says, you can't prevent it though. That's what I'm saying. Most of these games people are talking about, children shouldn't be playing to begin with. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying you have the means to interact with people you want to or don't want to already. People need to take responsibility and use them instead of getting to someone else too. Clowns, what do you think about Nate's comments in the live chat?
In a sense, I understand what he's saying, that children shouldn't be playing these games, and I agree with him. There's a rating on these games for a reason, but in the real world, every store employee doesn't check that, even if they're supposed to. Sometimes they'll just sell it to them anyway without even thinking. I mean, that's like second nature. Or parents might not realize how violent a game might be for their child, or they might think, okay, it looks kind of cartoony, it's like kind of artsy, so there can't be anything serious on there. But they have no idea what the communication is like on those games and what their kids talk to, or who they talk to, or what they talk about. So, I mean, I get that, but and that's where Microsoft's trying to come in and play the bigger role of more responsibility to help people, help prevent people in bad situations.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. I mean, I think regardless of the whole, I think even if you're an adult, right? Like you should still as an adult feel like you're at a safe place, right? You're paying for a service, you're paying for enjoyment. I don't think anybody goes into entertainment either wanting to feel violated, right? Like when's the last time you went to a movie or felt like, paid for something where you were expecting enjoyment, where you were walking and saying, you know what, I might be angry by some kind of racist comment that someone says, or I might not enjoy this because, someone is, acting out of control. I mean, like, I think that I think like this idea of, feeling safe. I don't think that's like abnormal, right? Like, I don't like, why is that like, I see some of these comments like what like no one's commenting about that. Like it's like, oh, they just want to ban your free speech. They want to mute you. I'm like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about they want a safe place for people to play. Like, why is that a bad thing? I don't get that. Like I just don't understand that, clowns.
Well, invaders in the chat is asking if people get banned or what they said, do they lose their digital libraries? Well, essentially, yes and no. On the 360, if you kept your 360 downloaded items, you would still have them. But if you deleted your digital items and you want to re-download them, you lost them because you can't log back in on a permaban. However, honestly, if people read the terms and conditions on their Xbox agreement
Yes,
and
I'm gonna say
Microsoft
that. Yeah, yeah.
there's a thing in there where you can actually apply for arbitration and Microsoft pays for it. So if you were to lose, let's say that you said something on Xbox Live, you didn't agree with whatever happened to you and you lost your stuff. If you weren't happy with it and you're of legal age like you're supposed to be when you sign up for these services, you can apply for the arbitration portion to see what an arbitrator would say. I mean, maybe he might say, hey, give him his access to his library back, but just don't let him voice communicate ever again. I mean, we never know. But essentially, yes, Invader, you would lose your digital library.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's real, man. I mean, I guess is that I guess for me, it's like that's the other thing. You got to read the terms of services too. I don't think people are reading terms of services. You know, and Microsoft as a company has a right to to that terms of services, can kind of create it as they see fit. And if you don't agree with it as a consumer, you have the right not to participate in an Xbox Live. You can take your business elsewhere. Um, and Nate says, I can't go online and find toxic communities in a heartbeat because I know exactly what incites that stuff. A lot of it stems from competitive communities like League of Legends, Rainbow Six, and Counter Strike Go. I play across all platforms, so I'm not talking about Xbox when I talk. I mean, yeah. I mean, look. I still don't. Even if it's competitive, I don't agree with that. Like, why do we have to make disparaging comments to people over competitive games? Like, why is that a thing? Like, why do we have to do that? Why can't we just ask better for um from our fellow man, or for or to be better as a society? Like, why is that a bad thing? Like, I feel like that's the part that people um that's the part that surprises me, I think, from people.
I read a lot of psychological reports on
Mhm.
opinions on people who rage on video games because I have a friend who's really bad and like I almost think he's got like Tourette's, but he's really bad with it. So I was curious and I started reading reports from psychologists and um, psychologists, and what they were saying was that people that get so angry at video games and are rage induced are really insecure about themselves, and a lot of times it's a reoccurrence because they died or because they don't want to look bad in front of their friends, or because they couldn't get something done again because they got killed before they can accomplish it. So a lot of it is a personal issue upon that person, and he should not bring his issues out upon other people. In general, that's just from a psychological standpoint, that makes sense.
What's interesting is that we talk about toxicity in the community. I mean, I think that clowns, I might agree on this. I think that you probably are aware of certain people that have issues based on how they react to certain things, you know. Um, and that doesn't surprise me what you said, but still, I mean, just because you react a certain way or upset, and no one's saying that you shouldn't be upset, because I get upset when I lose, when I'm playing Destiny 2, and I'm and I'm playing the Iron Banner, and I'm losing. I get upset. Like, I get that because I'm competitive, but I'm not going to make disparaging comments to somebody,
Yeah. I
because I
mean,
lost, because I want to make myself feel superior. Like, that's bullshit.
I think most civilized people, or most people that have control of their emotions, I guess control of their emotions is the better word, will probably mute their mic if they get upset and be like, "Oh, damn, I can't believe that happened." Or they might complain if they're having lag issues or ping issues, but they're not going to go out and start attacking other people and calling them racial slurs. And the ones that do need to get banned. They need to get off the service because it's not fun when people start doing that. It ruins the enjoyment for everybody in that lobby. And if I'm paying for Xbox Live or paying for PlayStation in general, I shouldn't have to put up with other people's insecurities and them taking it out on random people in the lobby. I shouldn't have to deal with that. That's not my problem. They need professional help.
That's a good point. And if you're paying for something, you want the best experience possible. And if those things are taken away from your experience, you have every right to voice that as a consumer. Like, I remember, again, on Xbox Live, when those tools weren't available. I mean, I remember, like, where you couldn't ban somebody from a live chat, and so they come on and you'd be hearing like death metal. You'd be playing like not Uncharted, Unreal Championship. You play Unreal Championship, and you'd have this guy that'd be playing like death metal, and that's fine if you like death metal, whatever, right? But you'd be playing. I mean, clown, seriously, like, this goes back to like 2002, and you're trying to communicate with the rest of your team, but no one can hear you because this guy, all you hear is blah, 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 blah. That's all you hear. That's all you hear in the background, right? That's all you hear, and you can't mute him, until we had the option to mute on Xbox Live, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that was, I mean, so, I mean, is that person, am I violating his free speech? No, I'm not violating. He can still do that. But, but Microsoft gave us the tools to not listen to those people, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw a lot of that with the early connects too as well.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, I'm telling you, clowns. I remember being a beta tester, man, and I mean, dude, I mean, a lot. I mean, it's not as bad as it was 17 years ago. Like, it's gotten much better because Microsoft's put things in place to kind of mitigate that stuff. But it was bad, man. I'm telling you, it was really bad.
I do
And
remember
it wasn't.
playing I do
Mhm.
remember playing Black Arrow back in the day, and it was very competitive because for you that don't know, Ubisoft used to have its own leaderboards on Black Arrow, and then there was Team Compete, and there was Game Battles before it was MLG, and all the clans competed to get to the top spots. I mean, there was a lot of clans, and back then people would get so toxic over it, and they would threaten people, and there would be real fights for some of this because people would give out their information, their address, which is terms for a suspension now if you give out personal information. But back then, people did that just to fight it out, and it led to more bad stuff, more hard feelings. So just prevent it in general.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I remember we used to do was it Rainbow Six Siege? We should do was it, no, not Siege. I'm sorry. Was it Rainbow Six before Black Arrow? Um,
Um,
was it Rainbow Six 3?
I think it was Rainbow Six Three.
So yeah, Rainbow Six 3. We used to do a lot of competitive Xbox Live Clan multiplayer. And so, like, if you guys don't remember, like, there wasn't like there was usually websites that you went to, like, with clans. I forgot some of the websites that we used to go to, but I was part of a clan called Rogue Nation, and um we used to, like, like play competitive, like if you remember Return of Castle Wolfenstein, right? Wolfenstein was like one of the like great like at the time one of the great like first person shooters for Xbox Live that was like team based. That we had different different modes. Yeah, I think it's like stopwatch, and I forget what the other ones were, but we used to play a lot of stopwatch as a clan, and we were good. I mean, clowns like my clan, man, we used to hold it down on stopwatch, right? Like the most clans could not beat us, but when they would lose, man, it's like it got crazy. Like they would start being like, "Hey, fuck y'all! You guys are like this, and you guys are N's, and you guys are F's," and like it was like, whoa, wait a minute, like, like, whoa, why the negative like comments? Like, why are we going there? And it was bad, man. Like it was really bad. Anytime, and you would see it in the forums, they would post it, and it's like I just never understood it. And I think one of the things that we said as beta testers, I said this earlier, some of the feedback that we gave as beta testers was like, hey, this stuff you can't like if you want people to want to play on Xbox Live, you can't have this stuff because it's going to turn people off. Like people don't want to be like yelled at or made fun of. I mean, there was times where I was playing with games like a Halo 2 where people where you play with random and like you'd have one random that's super competitive and you'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys? What are you guys like dumb, stupid? I'm like, yo, wait a minute. Like, why do you have to go there? Like that's not cool.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Um let's see. I'm trying to go back to the live chat here. Nate says, so there's no part of it that's not competitive except playing against bots, which are there to help you learn the games. You just don't cause a team to lose when you play live. He says, so it pisses people off when someone shows up and can't play at all and flat out causes their team to lose. MOBAs are different breed. Yeah, he says, yeah, I mean, when we get lit, we play Iron Banner on Destiny 2. I don't run into this stuff at all anyway, though we are always in party or Discord, and if we invite someone who doesn't gel, we kick them. So yeah, I mean that may be your experience, Nate, but I don't think that's. I think clearly there's people out there that are not having that experience. So I think in order to ensure that people have a good experience, I don't see anything wrong with what Microsoft is doing. And Invader Gaming says, "Good talk here, guys. Thank you." Oh man, Nate has a lot to say about this. Let's see here. Nate says he knows someone who's 40 years old who's a woman. Hold on a second. Let me go back. Well, that's the other thing. I think women get it worse than men do on Xbox Live because I've heard that from women on Xbox Live.
Well, I can't. It's hard to speak from that experience because I obviously wouldn't know 100%. But from what my daughter tells me, that when she plays Rocket League and they find out that she's a girl and she beat them, like they'll start messaging her and her teammate and saying, "Hey, what's up, sweet stuff? Why you gotta try so hard? Why don't we hang out in a private lobby and exchange some crates?" I could, and they start. It starts getting awkward from there. Like it really does.
But isn't that kind of like as a dad? It's not like don't you want to like reach like hey, motherfucker, I'll choke the shit out of you if you fuck with my daughter.
Yeah, I
Like
get kind of mad.
like I
Like,
have a daughter, man. So I if anyone fucks with my daughter, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. But I mean, but why? This is my point. Like Phil is speaking out against stuff like that, right, clowns? Like
yeah,
what you do. So why is that a bad thing?
I don't
I
think
don't
it is
get
a
it.
bad thing because gaming is not just about masculinity and angry men anymore. Gaming is about everybody being inclusive, from children who want to play Minecraft to 90-year-old ladies in the retirement home that maybe want to play some Tetris or something.
Mhm.
Gaming is for everybody, dude. It's not just one set or one margin of the population anymore. It used to be geared towards males. I mean, you would hardly see females in the arcades where I used to live growing up, but now it's such a huge overreach, and it's probably equal to male to female ratio nowadays.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think that there is I thought I saw this recently, like it's like 48%. of the of gamers are female and 50 are men, 52 are men. I thought I saw that recently. I could be wrong, but
And another thing too that I want to point out, and a lot of people probably don't correlate this, is that Xbox is reaching more now than ever to reach other countries than before.
yeah,
And Phil Spencer even said in an article after E3 that he intends to get into third world countries like parts of Africa with the X Cloud, and because people use smartphones over there, they might not have consoles or a dedicated
yeah,
electric line to play or hook up a console, but they have cell phones. And this is another way of protecting the overall general population of Xbox, because we have no idea what uh, we might come across when the gaming market opens up even further. I'm sure there's some people out there that might not like Americans in general. So, I mean, this protects everybody. It's not just, hey, toxic masculine guy, we're going to ban you. It's about protecting everybody.
yeah. No, I mean, I agree, man. I agree. I think that, and I think that you bring an interesting point up about, gaming always has been, I mean, I guess you could say has been a predominantly masculine type of activity or hobby, but it's not anymore. I mean, it's certainly changed since you and I have, started gaming on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's something that, I look at my niece. She picked up gaming, playing Minecraft on her iPad. You know, and so it's not just this male dominated uh, hobby anymore. It has crossed. Um, it has crossed different barriers now. So um, look, I at the end of the day, man, I'm happy that the Microsoft's taking this approach. And that's my opinion, and I don't see it as being a bad thing. So, Detrilla says, could Phil be attacking the hardcore fan base
No,
by not only showcasing more kid-friendly games, but trying to reestablish the Xbox community as kid-friendly ecosystem versus adult-oriented?
I don't think so, because this is a really awkward question
Yeah,
to answer it in a sense, but it's nothing against the hardcore fan base. The hardcore fan base is always going to be there for the hardcore titles like Gears and Halo and the Call of Duties. I mean, that those have a hardcore audiences, right? So as far as reestablishing the Xbox community as kid friendly, no, he's establishing as people friendly in general. I mean, it's not just about children he's protecting. Xbox is going to protect everyone's individuality and everyone's individual rights to a safe place to play.
it's funny. I think people think, oh, as an adult, I don't need to be protected. As a man, I don't need protection, right? But that's not the case. I mean, I think to Phil's point, look, we want to build a platform that's enjoyable for everyone. And look, I'm a man, but I've been offended by comments that people have made on Xbox Live. So that's an interesting question. But no, I don't think that's
Think think about this too, right? I mean,
yeah,
imagine getting threatening messages on Xbox Live and you report it and
yeah,
nothing happens, right? You don't get a response back. Nothing happens. That person's still on there. And then all of a sudden, like a week later, you're getting swatted, and the SWAT team breaks down your door because some kid who
yeah.
sent you an angry message a week ago, nothing ever happened. I mean, with this system in place now, there's going to be more responsibility than ever on Microsoft and Xbox to prevent these kind of things as well. So it's record keeping. It's just, I mean, it's all about your safety, man. Your
Yeah.
money
Accountability is
about
key.
later. What's that, Boom?
Boom, boom.
What's
What
up,
is going
Boom?
on, man?
I was listening. My wife and I were just watching some TV, so I happened to see the alert. I said, "Oh my god, I have to jump into this." She's like, "Go ahead, go crazy."
Boom. I'm glad you joined us, man, because you've been in law enforcement. So you, as a professional, have dealt with the rights of citizens in the U.S. And there's people out there, Boom, as you probably see on Twitter, that think that Microsoft, with Xbox Live and saying Phil Spencer saying, "Hey, Xbox Live is not a platform for free speech." People are going nuts over this, man. They're saying, "Hey, you know what? No, this is Microsoft being like China and Russia." So I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, man. I just
No,
when I
no.
hear
I mean, listen, I actually didn't see the article myself, and you know what it is. The thing with Phil Spencer, and I'm going to have to read the articles. Unfortunately, sometimes his comments are taken out of context.
Oh yeah,
You know,
definitely.
more times than not. You know, when he's talking about the power narrative, and this is obviously, you know, Microsoft is coming off a solid E3, a solid fan fest. And you know, obviously, there's been a lot of they've been getting a lot of great feedback from xCloud and you know, the way the company is going. So they certainly don't need this. This is definitely bad PR, no doubt about it. But you know, again, I'm going to have to read the article, and obviously, you know, you can't treat freedom of speech is a big thing. Okay.
Well, real quick, boom. Because you mentioned you haven't read the article. I just want to pull a couple quotes here real quick.
Please, that'd be awesome.
So Phil Spencer's basically said, look, video games is a unifying force for the world. And he says that you know, there's some stuff at the top about gaming's positive impact. This is the Kotaku article. Kotaku says he notes that gaming's ever increasing cultural impact comes at a time when digital life includes a growing toxic stew of hate speech, bigotry, and misogyny. The crux of the post is about online safety. And Phil says, you know, we will identify potentials for abuse and misuse on our platform, and we'll fix problems quickly. Phil says, you know, Xbox community standards and knowing that hate and harassment have no place in gaming. He said that Xbox will be adding new content moderation features, first to community members of official Xbox Live groups called Xbox Clubs, but eventually to all Xbox users by the end of the year. So that's pretty much, you know, what he's kind of said, and he's
Yeah, but I mean, again, reading exactly those are his exact quotes. I don't get the this is Russia or China kind of a vibe from it.
I don't either. I mean, we like Clowns and I talked about. You remember this because you're our age.
Yes,
Boom.
yes.
You remember Tenement Square?
Yes,
Remember
yes, I certainly.
the
I
college
think the
student
world
got ran
should
over
never
by a
forget
tank?
Tenement Square.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have more recently watched the HBO documentary on Chernobyl and how the
Yes.
KGB handled that, I
Yeah.
mean, I just think, boom, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just think it's very irresponsible for people to say and even insinuate that this is us going the way of China and Russia. I'm like, it's not. It's bullshit.
Let me explain something. Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for the link. Okay, anytime that you have one of the when you do one of these brat brands, I actually truly enjoy this simply because it's usually touching on a situation that you're normally not going to hear about in a podcast, right? Because normally podcasting is regarding gaming, and some people do and do not like when you get your peanut butter in my chocolate, right? When it comes to gaming and real world events.
Yes.
And you know, obviously, I have been a part of this wonderful and frightening world of social media since June. Seriously, since June of 2017. I've been a part of Twitter since 2014, but I was never really very active, especially as a police officer. You know, that's why I never jumped on it prior, because a lot of people don't know this. They backdoor your, as at least a New York City police officer, they backdoor your social media feeds. So if you're taking poses with your gun or you're doing things, you know, that you're not supposed to be doing, you're probably going to lose your job.
Yeah.
So I never was. Obviously, I never did anything ridiculous like that. But just not to have to be bothered, I never, you know, was a part of social media. And you know, obviously, as I moved away from mainstream media gaming because for everyone knows my feeling about how I feel about IGN and the rest of
Yes.
these guys. That's fine.
I know.
But when I started getting into social media, where I was dealing with community members, talking with people, you know, obviously the unfortunate part of social media is that everyone has a voice. And I'm not saying that it's a significant large portion. And I'm certainly not talking about, again, my statement now has nothing to do with what video game flag you fly. That is irrelevant. I'm talking about human beings. Unfortunately, when I say everyone has a voice, that goes for some of the most horrible comments I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
as one more particularly, I think Clowns might have actually commented on it. Some guy wrote something regarding Gears of War 5 is ruined because the lead is a female, and it was like hashtag F feminism or something like that. And I had to comment, and I normally won't, but when you see
Yeah.
stuff that's so outrageous, that's so small-minded and uneducated, I'm going to make a statement, and I did, and I got a lot of positive feedback on it, and for good reason. You have to denounce that kind of that hate speech, if you will. And that's exactly what it is. Sure, it's not calling someone a racial name, which of course I frown upon. But it's still, circling a group, if you know what I mean, like circling a group on a page. And I've always said you can't put people under an umbrella. Regardless of what race, creed, sexuality, religion, it doesn't matter. You cannot do that. Everyone is an individual.
It's
So
true.
getting back to what Phil Spencer is saying, I have to say this. This is going to be a nice topic on Thursday's Xbox Factor podcast. And again, I don't really do politics, but you have to tip your cap to Phil Spencer, understanding that there are some people. Bullying is a thing, folks. Okay, and newsflash: young people kill themselves over it. I don't know if everyone is wants to bury their head in the effing sand, but the reality is that Phil Spencer coming out and saying what he says sounds to me, as an adult, as a near 49-year-old man, ex-law enforcement, someone that deals with thousands of people on a weekly basis with my as active I am on social media, that this is something that you stand up and you cheer. Because obviously, video games for many people, including myself, and I think most people that are listening right now, is your gateway to get away from the horrible world that we live in. And the last thing I think anybody wants to do is to be online playing a multiplayer game, which obviously is the most popular part of gaming in 2019,
Yeah.
and have some piece of shit, pardon my French, whether it be male, female, or anyone in the middle, turn around and yell racial slurs, sexist slurs, talk about whether you're poor or rich. Who the F wants that? So, get Clowns.
I also want to say too, like, I think a lot of people get confused. They think free speech means hate speech, and it doesn't.
That is a fantastic point, Clowns.
Absolutely. Free speech is not hate speech. It has nothing to do with the other. And we've even seen on Facebook recently in different court cases where kids would go on there and bully schoolmates, and the schoolmates would commit suicide. Unfortunately, it has happened over bullying comments. And you know what the courts have found? That those kids that bullied the other kids into committing suicide are responsible.
Absolutely.
For them. And that's another thing. Again, not free speech is not hate speech, man. It isn't.
I got to tell you something. Out of everything I said, it sounds absolutely unintelligent to what the statement you just made, because that's the statement of today's show.
Clowns, we could have just opened that with the show. They closed it.
Yes, no, seriously,
No,
it's that important
seriously.
of a statement. Hate speech is not free speech, and
Boom,
vice versa.
That's what we're hearing nowadays. Like, people feel like if you're infringing on my right to have hate speech, that you're infringing on my rights of free speech. And no, it works both ways. You can't invoke hate speech when it impedes on someone's, as this country is fighting on, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't work that way. Like, if it impacts someone, like Clown said, where they're going to commit suicide, you're not protected by free speech then.
No,
Right.
the law will come after you. You're not anonymous on Xbox Live.
Yeah, you can look. You have every right to go out, and as much as I disagree with this, you have every right to go out, if you pull a permit, you have the right to protest. You could do those things. You can protest against, things that I don't agree with.
Anything that you feel is unjust or is oppressing the people.
If you're a white supremacist, you have the right to do that. You do, and I'm not going to argue with that fact that they have the right to do that. The problem is that you don't have the right to sit there and tell other people that you have to listen to my hate speech, or if I bully you and you commit suicide, that I'm protected by the right to freedom of speech, because it's not the case.
Yep.
Like Clown says, it's not. There's limitations to free speech, and I feel like I don't understand. I don't know. I just don't understand like how that has been
We've seen
convoluted,
another.
because there's examples of, and I
Well,
mentioned this
Enrique,
on, yeah.
I want to bring up real quick. Look at the Alex Jones situation, right, where he kept telling people Sandy Hook was a fraud, it was fake. Guess what? He got sued because it wasn't free speech. It was considered self-harm to those
Yes.
families.
Yes, that is correct, and that
Because it
is
goes back to it goes back to, that as citizens we have the right to, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and so, yeah, I mean, you're right. That's a great example. And but even then, I mean, he was accused of child pornography, right?
Well, I think
um,
later on, yeah,
but
but just in general.
he was also given the right of due process, right?
Yep.
So, he wasn't thrown in jail right away. I mean, the
you know,
facts gotta
I
come
just
out.
want to shout out real quick the Trillist. He brings up a really good point. He says that's why it's 75% party chat because you're in a party with your friends, and only a very small 25% game chat these days. Because the truth of the matter, first of all, that's a fantastic number to bring up. Now, I'm not sure where he's getting his sources from, but I don't think he'd put himself out there if he didn't believe what he was saying was true. And you know what? He's 100% right. And here's why. The three of us are friends, right? Now, we've never met in real life, and hopefully we can rectify that one day. I'd love to meet you guys, give you a big hug, a handshake, and say, let's go hang out and drink a Dr. Pepper, because I don't drink, but I'll buy you guys beers. But
Well, I don't drink either, but
excellent. So I'll buy you
Well,
whatever soda you
I'm the
want.
drinker of the group, so I will appreciate any kind of beer. I will
But
appreciate.
the point that he's making
Yeah.
is that we're all friends,
Yeah.
and we're going to go play Halo 5. We're going to go to Warzone, right? And we're going to jump on and we're going to have fun, and we're going to be talking about our shows or what shows we were on and what we're looking forward to and Halo Infinite. And we're just going to be having a hoot. Who would want someone to intrude that and be like, hey, you're fat, you're skinny, you're black, you're white, you're a Christian, you're non-Christian, you're this, that, and the third. Who the F wants to listen to that? And that's a tremendous stat. So I mean, first of all, no, I think what really kind of annoys me about this is people are very quick. And this is not a group I'm talking about. This has nothing to do with gaming. I'm talking about, this is real life, folks. Okay. Where are the people that should be standing up? And I'm talking about the press now. Okay. The press knows what the horrors of social media. Okay. Especially the gaming press. They understand that this console war shenanigans, whatever you want to call it, is real. Some people wake up and go to sleep thinking about it every day, and that's obviously very sad. Because it shouldn't matter what console you like. Just the fact that you're a gamer, it should be enough. But apparently, it's not for everyone. Where are the articles cheering on Phil Spencer for being the first company to put their flag in the sand and say, we're going to be proactive? Where are those articles? And I hope they start to come out, because
they're out there. Boom. Like,
okay.
Kotaku has actually reported on this. Actually, several websites have been reporting on this.
Okay. See, again, I just found out about it, so I'm going to have to do my due diligence.
But what you're having now, though, you're having YouTube influencers that are, I hate to say this, it's crazy that we have identity politics in gaming now, but you have certain YouTubers that are lean probably more far right, the extreme right of that of the party, that are saying that, hey, Microsoft is in fact impeding on our free speech, and we should be worried about this.
No, that's ridiculous. What? That's sad. It is sad.
It's funny because I was talking to the Mooch, because we're talking about the Mets, and then I said to the Mooch, I said, hey, have you seen this article about Microsoft? But hold on a sec here. Give me just a sec. There is, if you guys are familiar with the Quartering, and their website,
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're a podcast I don't frequent because I think they tend to evoke a lot of identity politics into
Yes, they
gaming,
do. That's why I don't listen, but I've heard of them. Yes.
yeah. But basically, this individual, the quartering, and Mr. Negative, who you guys know is very outspoken, has a lot to say about the quartering. But basically, their video is head of Xbox Phil Spencer has said Xbox is not a free speech platform! Exclamation point.
Yeah, and that's again, that's a clickbait title. That's not again. You read verbatim what he said,
but he does say that though, that it's not a free speech platform. But the problem is that people are taking that as
they're running with it.
They're running with it, but
Yeah.
without I think Boom, without the understanding of what free speech really is, and
Yeah.
what Clown said, what you said, Clowns, and that
Perfect. Yeah.
and that Twitter exchange that we were both part of, where Clowns laid it out. I mean, to the T, the letter of the law about free speech.
And that's something I want to ask Boom, because he was a police officer, and I know that, you know, New York and New York City can be pretty heated at times. But imagine, you know, somebody walk into a store in New York City or New York, right? And they're angry at the shopkeeper or the owner of the property. So they start mouthing off and harassing the owner. Doesn't the owner have the right to call the police and ask the guy to have him removed from the property?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be that. First of all, there's a couple of ways that would go. You know, you call us to the scene, and of course, the first thing that I would do, in the kind of police officer that I was, is I immediately diffuse the situation. Now, sometimes you can't. Sometimes people are just people, and you have to. You have to be.
Did you ever do a roll on the ground like they do in the Division 2?
You know what? No, I never did. But I'm gonna tell you what I have done. I have peeked around corners using a mirror I kept in my pocket so I didn't get shot in the face. I did tactics like that. Yeah, sure.
Oh my, dude, that's pretty aggressive.
Well, you know what, dude? I always consider myself Batman. I had pockets of equipment that my friends used to make for my colleagues, my friends. Well, they're my friends too, but my colleagues used to make fun of me that my pants weighed more than I did because I carried everything in those pants.
Hey, nothing wrong being safe, Boob.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Trust me, I was the guy that when you needed a lock pick, when you needed a knife, or you needed a spare flashlight or something of that, binoculars, a first aid kit, I had everything in those pants. It was ridiculous.
You were Sam Fisher.
Pretty much, yes. The only thing I didn't pull is a ladder out of my rear, like
like in Death Stranding.
Yeah, Death Stranding. That's correct. That's the only thing I was unable to do. The ladder was very hard to walk around with in my pants.
And Boom,
I
just want to say real quick though, like I think that's the confusion here that people have, is that they think that they can say whatever they want, even if it's personal, private property to anyone.
Well, no, if someone, well, like for instance, if the situation was, let's role play for a second. Let's say, for instance, the shop owner happens to be
me.
Like,
I want to role play me.
Yeah, okay. Let's say it's you, right? And someone walks in, they weren't happy with your services, and right, and you know, you can be rude if you want, but when it starts to become a public disturbance where other people are around, that's where we have to now take action. Now that's considered harassment, and if when asked to leave, said person doesn't leave, now it can be considered criminal trespass, because you're asking now, the store owner's asking now, if I get on the scene as a New York City police officer in uniform, I am technically the law. Yes, you know, I'm a representation of that law. If I give you a lawful order to leave and you refuse the lawful order that I'm giving you based on the situation that's in front of us, now you're talking about, and God forbid it should get into where it's now it's physical, it's resisting arrest, it's criminal trespass. You know, if you hurt me, it's assault 2 on a police officer, which is a Class B felony.
What about freedom of speech?
Well, freedom of speech completely moves out of the way by just you saying your piece. But when the public is now disturbed, like, it's not going to go where I'm just telling the shop owner, you know, I don't like your prices and I feel like I was ripped off. Okay.
When the who's disturbed?
What's that?
Can you repeat that again? When the who is disturbed?
The public. When the public is disturbed, it becomes a problem, because now you're.
And that goes on Xbox Live, by the way. That's like part of the. That's the point I think people are missing with Xbox Live.
Well,
But
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
you have to understand something. Listen, and like I said, I necessarily don't think that that it could be said any better than Clowns already said. People misunderstand that hate speech is free speech, and I got news for you, Clowns. You should write a paper. I mean, seriously, and ask a website to run it. You'll win an award on it. First of all, the title alone is powerful, but the statement behind it is even more meaningful. And I think that because people think that, well, this is the United States, it's not China, it's not Russia, it's not Czechoslovakia, I can say whatever I want. You sure could. But the minute you start talking about race, creed, color, sexuality, preference, it becomes a very serious problem.
Yeah,
Now,
Well,
when you
because those things,
infringe on civil rights.
that is
yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
correct. Yes.
And when your speech is look, let's face it. I mean, when you're talking, I don't care what anyone says. When you're talking about hate speech, you're talking about talking down or talking about causing harm to another group.
Yep.
Like Boom
That's a
said,
problem. Yeah.
you're impacting.
You're also
the
making
greater good, the
making a
community.
threat, and
You're
you
making a
cannot
threat,
threaten
exactly.
people. That's correct.
Let me tell you
Yes.
Yeah.
something. When I saw those people walking down Charlottesville with those torches, that to me was a threat.
Of course it is, because they could burn a car, they could burn a person, they could burn, and now you're causing bodily harm.
But
You're causing alarm to the public.
but
You're
it's not only that
you're
though.
being a menace to society. There's all kinds of
It's
things.
also the historical representation of what that meant and at
Yes, that's absolutely
what
correct.
people
The
used to
meaning
do
behind walking
holding
with a
torches.
torch. Yes, that
Yeah.
is correct. Yes.
So I do want to say real quick. So the quartering, and oh God, I don't like this. I don't like their channel. I don't agree with their channel, and I don't like saying their name, but I'm going to
Well,
for the
it's for
purpose of,
context, so it's
yeah, for
perfectly
context. But
understandable.
their new video is, again, head of Xbox Phil Spencer has said Xbox is not a free speech platform! Exclamation point. This is super important because as games continue to go to cloud only, it's a frightening precedent that PlayStation and Nintendo will likely follow. Please watch and share. And
This
then if
is
you
going to
look,
get 10 million views because of the title, and because Xbox, unfortunately, has been the whipping boy, so to speak, of the industry, and the joke of many within social media who fly a PlayStation only flag. This very sad clickbait title with no context behind it is going to get 1 million views, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
Because the core, I mean, again, I've heard of them. I've never watched any of their stuff because of exactly what you said prior to telling me about it. They're an outrageous. I don't know if they're left wing or right wing, whatever wing they
no,
are.
they're clearly right, but
Okay,
whatever. Whatever. I mean, it's just the fact that they're really super politicizing something that I don't think needs to politicize. I think
this
this
has
is
been
more of a
taken
common
completely
sense
out of
and
context.
doing what's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean, listen, you have again. You have to. I mean, okay. Look, here's the thing. Let's remove us for a second. The old bastards in the room. All right. If you're over the age of 40, remove yourself and put your kids in that position for a second. I know I'm getting outrageous, but I'm gonna take my nephew Tyler and my nephew Daniel, and I'm gonna put them in my place, sitting in front of Xbox, playing with they're sitting next to each other, they have their headsets on, and some piece of shit gets on. Now, both my nephews are 11 and 10 respectively. They're not my kids, but I want you to know that I would commit murder to save them. That's how much I love them. So obviously, they are treated like my sons. And let's just say, for instance, they're playing Fortnite. And a 14-year-old, a little bit older than them, gets on and starts talking sexually explicit, or they start talking about race. Now, these are 10 and 11-year-olds that may or may not understand what that is, because they're just playing Fortnite. They want to build and play against other players and do dances, right? They're the innocent part of this particular event that I'm making up. And they start saying horrendous things that have now, starting to make these 10 and 11-year-olds think. Could you imagine how you would feel as the parent or the guardian watching these two kids if they came to you and said, what is the N word, or what is? I mean, that kind of stuff is a parent's worst nightmare. So I want to go to two parents actually. And Enrique, you talk about having 17 kids. I want to know exactly how that would make you feel, and would Xbox Live's Phil Spencer having a policy in place to have people accountable for saying such things, would you cheer that on then?
Yeah, dude, let me tell you something, man. I don't want to have those conversations with my kids.
Thank you. That's
Because
great.
here's the thing with kids, like children need to be able to be children. Like the one thing that children have that we don't have as adults is their innocence. And as a society, I always think that we have to protect that. We have to protect their innocence. And so I mean, I would not want to have that conversation. My son says to me, Daddy, I'm Latino. And my son says to me, Daddy, someone said that I'm a dirty Mexican,
Or
or I'm
something
sick.
horrendous like
Yeah,
that. Yes.
I'm a
Yes.
sick, or I should go back to my country.
Horrendous.
Yeah, like
It's
I don't
sad.
want.
It's almost to the point
Yeah,
it would make me cry to even think about it.
no, it would break my heart. Like I would sit there
Yeah.
and be like, okay, I got to explain to you, that people are mean. I mean, I already have to have those conversations where my 10-year-old comes at home and he's like, Daddy, some kid said that that I stink, or that I'm stupid because I couldn't solve a math problem. I mean, like there's that you have to contend with, but.
Because yes, yeah.
But the other stuff, no, I don't, and I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting, Phil to create an environment that's positive for people. Like that's the
What
part that
is
I don't
wrong
understand.
with positivity?
Yeah, like
That is my it has
like everyone is so focused on fucking free speech. I'm like, no,
yes.
no, no.
The
It's about,
wrong version of free speech.
yeah, this is the part that kills me, and I feel like I'm not trying to get political, and I don't know if this has to do with the current president and that's in office, but I feel like there's this thing of free speech over just common decency. Like,
Usually it's what I'll take one further. Free speech over common sense.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. When does I can't remember, Boom, and I'm not as old as you.
Yeah, no one is,
almost,
trust me.
almost as old, but I don't remember a time where where doing right for your fellow man was an issue.
Yes, you
And
know
where
what's funny? It's funny you should say that. That's a really fantastic. Another you guys are very smart, and that's a fantastic point. Where it seems in society today, doing right is looked upon as weak and wrong, and being on the wrong side because
well,
it's your opinion
we were
seems
called
to.
we were called snowflakes today.
What's that? Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow. I mean,
And,
listen.
you saw that. I think I don't know if that was directed
I think
specifically at us or you clowns, but I mean there
he
was
said
Look,
mention.
that
look, let me tell you something, okay? If being a snowflake is caring about humanity, then I'll be a blizzard.
Nice.
well, one thing I want to reiterate here, Boom, and follow me on this one, because I know that we gave you that scenario earlier about the shop and the shop owner and stuff. But imagine Xbox service, Xbox Live is the shop, Microsoft is the shop owner,
Right.
and
Great
all the
point.
people on Xbox Live are customers, and they're walking into Xbox's shop. They think that they have a right to use hate speech on their services and call it free speech, and they get all angry when they get banned over it. I mean, they should see this coming, that it's not public property, it's not public land. And again, hate speech does not equal free speech. Free speech does not equal harassment. Free speech doesn't mean targeting anybody and violating
Bullying or any
somebody's
of those things.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
It's
Xbox has every right to do this.
yes, yes, they do. And as a matter of fact, very simply, most people just completely glance over it. Go look at the active rules and regulations for Xbox Live and see, and they're clearly there on what is allowed, what's tolerated, and what's not. And the reason why they have, but P.S. by the way, they were the first company to initiate. Again, this is home consoles. We're not talking about PC. PC's been around before the dinosaurs. That initiated the fact where you could report someone for inappropriate harassment, negative speech, racial related speech. They were the first ones to have that available to its customers. And obviously, if you are on, listen, this is what I say, and I don't think it's going to make a difference, because you're talking about when you talk about, if you were to say, and this might be a little bold of me, and if I'm wrong, I will gladly admit it, but these hate mongers that are all up in arms, the fake outrage, hashtag fake outrage 2019 and beyond, are probably somewhere around 1.5–2% of your Xbox Live. And this, I'm talking about Xbox populace that are going to get bent out of shape about this, because most people, and I see a lot of people, this is a lot of people in the chat have been going back and forth about this, and this is great. That most people, I'm not sure who had said it. I'm trying to look, and they said something to the effect where, these services are made for our enjoyment, and not to give a platform to basically hate mongers who already ruined the world as it is. And I say to the 2%, if it's that high, hopefully it's not, but if there is 2%, and you want to say 2 to 5% to be kind of really give a broad stroke, if you're unhappy with the services and the rules and regulations, well, I think you could leave. Xbox is not going to hurt in the pocket. Go to PlayStation, and when they do that, when they eventually follow Microsoft's footsteps, which they're going to do, then go over to Nintendo. And then Nintendo is going to follow suit and say, listen, we have to take this. This is going to be not just with the consoles, the three major consoles. This, I can guarantee you that Phil Spencer is going to garner support from all of the major third-party developers, the Activisions, the Ubisofts, you name it. They're gonna rally around this dude and say, yeah, we support this. We support proper manners and ethical behavior, as opposed to someone going up there and calling someone the N-word or the S-word or hating on them because of their sexuality. I have no time or room for that in my life, and I don't think anyone does as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just want to comment something on that's a great point, by the way, Boom. I want to go to live chat real quick, because Ryan Linda says there, the quartering's not right wing, but I know that's what fits. Right equals bad, left equals good. The dude is doing clickbait reviews. I just want to just make something a quick comment about right and left. I don't think right is bad. I don't think left is good. I don't want anyone to think that Brap is leans one way or the other. It's not. I tend to view myself as someone in the middle.
Right.
If someone was to ask me, what political affiliation do you feel closest to, I would say, I am a conservative liberal, and I am a liberal conservative. So, or wait a minute, a conservative liberal and a liberal conservative. So, I'm in the middle. I'm not. I always feel like, in the middle, there's someone lies to truth, right? I've never affiliated myself with any party, because I just don't. I feel like that's just pigeonholing yourself to ideas, and I feel like ideas always evolve and whatnot.
It's funny. I want to try and simplify this for the people that are going to listen, that are listening now. First of all, thank you guys for being here and hanging around. This is an important topic, and I'm glad you're talking about it. And I'm bringing in the police officer thing again. I get to a scene, and it's an accident, right?
Yeah.
Guy making a left gets T-boned by the guy going. The guy going straight gets T-boned by the guy making a left-hand turn. And it's funny I should bring this up, because yesterday my wife and I missed a horrific accident. I guess it's my Forza skills came in. I was driving with the speed limit for New York is 25 miles an hour. And a female driver, young driver, she could have been more than 20-something years old. I don't know if she was on her phone. Normally I can see it. Again, it's the trained eye. And I'm just going straight, and at the last minute, without a directional, she makes a left-hand turn. She gets her whole car in front of me. I slam on the brakes. I cut the wheel to the right, like I was taught. And somehow or another, I got into the block, missed a parked car, and my wife and I sat there for 5 minutes with our hearts in our hands. How I didn't hit one or anything. God was definitely driving me that day. There's no doubt about it. I pull over. The lovely lady walking her dog says, "Oh my God, I saw everything that happened. Are you guys okay?" Now, what do you think the female did? She fled the scene. Now, Granted, it's not an accident because no one got hurt. I didn't
Yeah.
hit anything, but she fled the scene because she knew she was wrong, and she had to have been a distracted driver. So again, it has nothing to do with my point. I just wanted to tell everybody that, you know, when you get to a scene, as a police officer in uniform, I get to an accident scene, right? I pull up, and car A, who was going straight, says, I was going straight, and that guy turned into me. Okay, sir, let me see your paperwork. Do you need an ambulance? Are you okay? No, I'm fine. Okay. So I get his statement, his or her statement. Then I go over to vehicle number 2, and I say, hi, vehicle number 2. Police Officer Ravitch, how can I help you? I mean, listen, are you okay? Do you need any medical assistance?
Mhm.
No, I'm fine. Let me see your paperwork. Could you please explain to me what was happening? Okay. I was making a left-hand turn. This guy is speeding down the road, cut in front of me, and I hit him. Okay, not a problem. I take the information, I write it down. I go back to the parties. I said, listen, this is what you said. Is that correct? Yes, sign the paperwork. Okay, you're signing that. They're signing my book saying that this is the statement that they made. I go back to party number 2. I say, ma'am, sir, is this? I just want to confirm that this is the statement that you gave me. Yes, that's what I said, officer. Okay, sign my book. Okay, I do my report. No, the cars get towed. They don't get towed, whatever. And at the end of the day, there are 3 stories here. There's vehicle number 1's account, vehicle number 2's account, and what actually happened. So there's 3 stories here. Who's right, who's wrong is not for me to decide as a police officer who just pulls into the scene simply because I didn't witness the accident. An accident investigator for your insurance companies are going to go based on speed, based on damage to the vehicle, time of day, whatever, you know, cameras, that's what they do. And in a situation like this, where you know, you're on Xbox Live, right? And I don't necessarily know if everything is recorded, but
you got to believe it is, though.
It has to be for
especially with when you think about like post 9/11, where
absolutely,
you guys remember with the whole Sony PlayStation. I mean, I mean, God, I hate to say this, the terrorists were actually on
using
PlayStation now,
using it, yes,
using it to communicate, yeah.
And obviously, did anyone monitor it back then? No, but people are monitoring it now because obviously a horrendous situation occurred.
We're being monitored right now,
right? And we are, and you know, and that's
the reality of the world we live in.
But you also have to, so people might be upset about that, but you also have to understand that, and I'm a firm believer in this. If you have nothing to hide, I don't care who listens. I really don't. In a situation where in a situation where you're paying for Xbox Live, and once again, Clowns has completely knocked it out of the park. Let's just say that Microsoft's Xbox Live is a department store, and we're all the customers coming in. If you come into that department store and there's a guy standing by the game case and he's yelling obscenities and racial and sexual orientation related slurs, are you going to want to shop there? Are you going to want to Patreon this business that Microsoft doesn't have? Of course not. You're going to be like, wait, if they don't do anything about it, I'm leaving. They are responsible as the stores, you know, again, this is hypothetically, of course, the owner of Xbox Live, to protect its customers' rights, sexual orientations, religion, and anything that goes under the fact of being a biased crime. So I don't understand how people could actually construe what Phil Spencer said into, oh my God, this is Russia now. It's ridiculous.
Because people are taking out of context what he's saying. He's saying that Xbox Live is not a platform for free speech, and what he really, and you know, I think the problem is people take like snippets of information and they don't dissect it. Like, he's not saying that you know, that the Xbox Live is the second coming of the KGB. Basically, what he's saying is we're not going to tolerate hate speech. We're not going to tolerate bigotry. We're not going to tolerate speech that impedes on our gamers enjoying a gaming experience. Like Phil has said, Microsoft, Xbox, we want people to have an enjoyable experience on our platform. And as a company, they have every right to do that. And that's the part that kills me. Like, why are people so against a company wanting to do or create
real
people enjoy?
quick,
like, what's wrong with that? It just boggles my mind.
There's nothing wrong with it. You know, the Trillist over here, now he has something that he wants to say, and I appreciate him being involved in the conversation. He says the U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled that hate speech is legally protected free speech. And you know what? That is fine. But
as long as it doesn't infringe on other people's rights.
Right, and that's again, that's the point I was going to go to. If you are an individual, man, female, or otherwise, and you feel that your right is to say what you want, when you want, how you want, no matter whose feelings you hurt or how you make someone feel, then I can assure you this: social media, probably not for you, and Xbox Live obviously is not for you, and you will be banned. And you will be, and Microsoft will fully tell you that your monthly $15 subscription is not wanted here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. See, people keep getting confused on this free speech and this hate speech thing. Hate speech does not equal free speech in most circumstances, and it certainly does not equal free speech if it violates someone's civil rights, because civil rights will supersede the hate speech
that is
protectment.
correct. Yes, well said.
Second off, Xbox Live is private property. So you can't walk on Xbox Live and use even protected hate speech if it violates regulations, rules that they use to control their service. It's a violation of their
policy.
bylaws.
That's
and their policy in terms of service. So, I mean, it's just like, even if you protest, right? If you protest using protected hate speech, is what was said in the chat. If that protected hate speech incites a riot, then that group is going to get arrested by the law because it broke the law.
Correct.
Yeah, and I mean that's all there is to it. I mean, we can see this again. I know that maybe Suarez wasn't in here earlier, but even on Facebook, right? You don't have free speech on Facebook. If you incite someone and you bully someone and they go and kill themselves, you're going to get sued. You're going to be found guilty in a court of law. That's happened already numerous times. Hate speech, even against protected individualities or sexual preferences, that force people of different ethnicities and different sexualities to commit suicide. They got sued as well and were found in violation of law. They got arrested as well, not just civilly sued, but federally arrested,
criminally charged.
Criminally charged.
Yes.
And you guys same thing with your ISP as well. You think that just because you go online and you sign on to Reddit that you're anonymous and you can say whatever you want on 4chan, or you can go into any anonymous chat or go into IRC. All that stuff is logged by your ISP. If you look, for example, if you search bomb in Google, it's going to go to the NSA. And if anything was to ever happen, the FBI knows about it. You will be arrested.
Yes.
You will be arrested. They can find that information. It is tied to you. It's tied to your ISP exactly when you logged in.
You know what's funny is that I feel like the people that are advocates against, or the ones that are saying that, how dare Xbox Live infringe on our free speech? They're the same ones that are okay if the NSA knocks on our front door for Google searching bomb, right?
Yeah, look at the Anarchist Cookbook. I mean, that was big, in the 80s. That was banned from public libraries. That was banned from bookstores because it induced self-harm. There are people that tried the recipes and hurt themselves. So the book had to be rewritten before it was ever re-released in a second edition.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, there's a famous case of free speech where the individual yelled fire at a movie theater and insinuated a not a riot, but a mass, people got hurt
of human people. Yes,
and he said, "Hey, freedom of speech," and Supreme Court said, "No, it's not freedom of speech because you caused harm to people.
You caused bodily harm to people based on what you were saying. That is correct.
You infringed on the rights of other people and their rights of safety. So yeah, I mean, it's not a situation where it's a free for all. Like that's not what this is about, or not what freedom of speech is about. I guess I just never." Clouds, I think you nailed it, man. Where you said, hate speech isn't free speech per se. I mean, you can protest like those folks did in Charlottesville, but but I think when stuff like that happens and then it infringes on people's rights of safety, and then it's an issue. And I don't know why this is getting lost.
I think there's people in the chat that are not necessarily understanding my point of view, and that's okay. I mean, everybody has a right to an opinion, and I respect their opinion. But think about this, though, right? If you really didn't have what you would call free speech on Xbox in the future, then you wouldn't be able to go in there and say that you never liked Obama as president or you never liked Trump as president. You could still say those things, and I can guarantee you're probably not going to get banned by Xbox Live.
No, they're not going to care because you dislike the person. Okay, fine.
You could be like, you know what? Fuck the U.S. government. I prefer Canada. I mean, you're not going to get banned on Microsoft for saying that.
Yeah,
No, you know what? You know what's I think at the end of the day very sad is that there are people that think because there are rules and regulations in place that somehow or another, not only is it wrong, but it's a violation of them as a human being, and that is so far from the truth. Let me tell you something, folks. Okay, you want to see, everyone takes for granted the laws that we have in this country that keep this country together. Go look at some of these foreign countries where people are being killed for looking at someone.
Cuba.
Right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at the genocide that goes on in, let's say, Africa. The horrors that these people have to live through on a daily basis because there are no laws in place. Listen, I say this to anyone.
Look at Saudi Arabia, where they're still beheading people.
Yes,
and they claim to be a. That's a whole nother conversation.
Some countries will
thank you, Clouds. They claim to be a progressive society, but yet they're still beheading people.
Right. How about this? If you look at some of the states around the countries like Iran and Iraq, they'll behead you for being gay, for being openly gay. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, we have to you have to take a step back before you start feeling that the pressures of the United States and people like Phil Spencer saying, hey, listen, we want Xbox Live to be a safe place and we are going to do something about it. I say to everyone, you know what? If this is bothersome to you, go over to PlayStation. Stop playing video games. Don't pay for Live because you're paying for a service that has rules.
It's the same thing though on PlayStation.
It's the same thing.
They're going to run the same issue because there's a term of service. But I want to go to Elio Suarez, who said, if you guys let them take your finger, they'll take your arm. Don't support this nonsense. Protect your rights and that of others. I'm like, that's not what this. No one's taking away your rights. Like, you can still voice whatever negative opinion you have. You just can't do it on the Xbox Live platform. And when
it comes to race, creed, color, sexual and orientation or sexuality,
those civil rights, rights. Don't violate those.
Yeah, no one's taking that away from you. You just can't do it on Xbox Live, and that's the part that people are getting. I think people get, if they're going to take away our rights on Xbox Live, that means they're going to take our rights from freedom of speech. No, they're not. They're not going to do that.
You know what? As all you people that are getting angry over this, right? That claim that you would say these things on Xbox Live that would get you banned. Walk into a police station and tell the clerk everything that you feel. You'd probably be arrested.
Yeah, go into a police station and yell, "I have a gun. I'm going to shoot everyone," and claim freedom of speech and see what happens.
It's not going to be freedom of speech.
Boom! What would happen if that happened?
Well, obviously there would be a lot of guns pointing at said person, and hopefully no one would fire around because obviously the threat is only his voice, but he would still get arrested for making I mean that's a public threat.
That's considered what terroristic threat nowadays, right?
Yeah, it would be considered. You know what? A Homeland Security would have to be called, and they would have to probably wind up taking over the case would go federal.
It's another thing too. Like, people think that the free speech and all the anonymity online. I'll give you another example, right? Look at all those people that were posting nude photos of celebrities because they found it somewhere else online or because somebody got access to a cell phone. So they're just posting it online. Yeah, I got free speech. I can post whatever I want. Nope. You invaded somebody's privacy. You invaded somebody's safe space. Guess what happened? Most of those people get arrested or they get fined or they get jailed.
That's right. Hey, listen, real quick. I don't know. It looks like it's Von A. Yeah, he said, "Interesting how Xbox YouTube channel logo is rainbow. LOL. What a pretending joke." Actually, dude, it's Pride Month, my brother. I'm not sure if that means anything to you or it doesn't, but it's a month that's celebrated as far as I know, all over the freaking world. That if you are, of course, openly or secretly gay, you should be proud of that. And again, I got to tell you, folks, the more I read stuff like this, the more fear I have for the world in 30 years, 40 years, 100 years from now, because my God, that is a very small-minded comment. And I would actually be ashamed to say that live on the air or otherwise. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great point. Boom. I want to go back to Elidio Sar says, so because a few bad apples, it is okay to violate everyone's right. Everyone says something bad, report them, and then that she be enough, but don't violate everyone's right to free speech. Again, Elio, you don't understand the free speech. You don't understand the law behind free speech. Like, this is the part that kills me. free speech is limited in this country. You guys don't understand this.
It's been
not
limited from its inception.
Yeah, like you don't have the right to free speech when your speech or whatever it is you're doing
It's
harms the right
hurtful.
of other people.
Or it's harmful or
Yeah.
causes
And
alarm. Yes,
it
It doesn't
thank you.
work. I mean, like fucking, like, I'm sorry, like I got a little angry at the guy. I'm not gonna mention his name. The guy on Twitter who called us snowflakes, clowns. But he's like the guy that called us, Russia and China. And I get infuriated, by the way, when I hear people make those comparisons, because I feel like those are asinine comparisons. And that shows me that, one, you don't know our constitutional law. You don't understand the law of the land here in the United States, and you're making an uneducated
and closed-minded
yes.
statement for sure.
And I'm sorry, guys, I just don't have patience for that. And you know what? That's a very uneducated just point of view. And look, and thank you for sharing that point of view. But I'm going to tell you, it's very uneducated. It shows me that you don't understand constitutional law. You just don't.
Right.
You don't understand it.
There's something I gotta say to Trillis. The Trillis says there are countless videos on the web where cops get cursed out and talked about, and they turn away and walk away because they couldn't do anything about it. As long as you don't physically threaten the cop, call out a protected class like their race, of course you're not going to do anything about it because.
But dude, I've been called every name in the and listen, I have been. People have said things to me that would make the average person punch somebody in the face. You know how I dealt with it for the most part? I laughed. I said, "Oh, and I kind of like water to a duck's back. It just rolled off. You cannot take these things seriously. You have to prove to the world and to yourself as a human being that you are a paraprofessional. You are representing that shield. You are representing the city of New York. You have to hold yourself to a higher accountability. And I'm sorry if you think I'm getting on my pedestal here, but I want you to know that honor and integrity are A1 and 2 for me before I do anything in this world. It has been when I was in the United States service and while as a New York City police officer for over 21 years. And I still hold myself to those standards doing YouTube. Integrity should be the paramount of what makes you a person. And if it doesn't, then I feel very sad for you.
Mm.
Also, I don't think I want to touch it.
We have 2 dislikes, by the way.
Hey, that's okay.
That's fine.
You touch some triggers. But there was always this big argument about the free speech and expression of clothing as well in schools, right? Well, gang colors aren't allowed in a lot of schools nowadays because it violates other people's safety and their concerns. And I remember growing up in Catholic school, some of the parents in affluent neighborhoods would complain, why does my child have to wear a uniform? Why do they have to wear the Catholic uniform? Why couldn't they wear jeans and a t-shirt? And they argued free speech. And you know what was told to them? It's private property. Yeah, you want to go here and participate in this private property, you're going to participate by its rules and regulations.
I mean, that's that's to the point of Microsoft. Like when Nate said, free speech is about the government, not necessarily public corporations. And look, even when you are employed, this goes back. It's funny. I always joke around about Shannon Loftus because her more recent Twitter episode. But I had the same conversation. People were like, "Oh, it's her her own Twitter account." I'm like, no, it's not, because it's verified, which means it's verified through Microsoft, which means it's a company account.
She has a responsibility as an executive. Sorry, end of story.
Yeah, and so when she, I'm not saying that she can't comment on things, but when she insults people, that's a different story. And and
having an opinion is one thing. Calling someone a fat ass is first of all, it should be beneath someone of her status quo. You are an executive within Microsoft. You're supposed to hold yourself to a higher standard. And I just want to make a quick comment. And listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm gonna tell you that it's your opinion, but someone who worked with the public on a regular basis, who was a youth officer for almost my entire career, this is a sad mindset. He said police are the worst. Instead of protecting everyone's rights, they're the ones who violate them. Very similar to, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else in the comment that said 1 or 2 bad apples, you can't put everybody on you can't blame everybody. Listen, every profession has racists. Every position has sexists. Every position has people who don't like people because of whatever you want to put. You know, I hate such and such because they're this. Every profession: mailmen, astronauts, police officers, firemen, cooks, chefs, people that sweep the ground, whatever. What everyone has those individuals in that profession that unfortunately are highlighted when they do or say something horrendous. So if you dislike it, if you dislike the fact that I'm talking about the fact that I was a New York City police officer who was a neighborhood kid who grew up in the projects and came back to that said neighborhood to mentor the youth that the same way I was when I was a kid, then you have a very closed mind. And I say, unfollow me on Twitter, unsub me, and every time I do a video, give me a thumbs down. I mean, you know, set up for alerts. Every time I drop a video, hit, you know, because I know I have 4 people that do that. Before I even say 2 words, there are 4 dislikes. And I have to say that when you think about the rationale behind that, someone actually has you alerted that every time you put out a video, they are alerted to give a thumbs down. I have to tell you that is a very sad existence.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. Salty Gaming wants a quote to, not quote, but I think a link to Phil Spencer's quote. So I'm actually going to drop that here in the live chat because it was on something that Kotaku reported, and they actually talk about, it's something actually Phil's talked about previously too. This isn't anything new.
Slow-mo, welcome, my brother.
Slow-mo. So Slow-mo,
yo,
gotta ask you, my friend, what are your thoughts on free speech, my man?
Free speech is
wait, real quick. Is Xbox, or is Xbox like China?
no.
Are you sure we're not heading towards Russia? I mean,
is
we might be
Xbox
heading
like
towards Russia.
No, not at all. Look, you can have free speech, like, and people always bring up the First Amendment, but they always bring it up in the wrong way. Like, oh, you're trampling on my First Amendment rights, and it's like, no, your First Amendment rights protect you from the government coming after you for things that you say.
For free speech,
it doesn't protect.
You're right. The Xbox. I mean, it protects you from the government.
But it doesn't protect you from the consequences of your actions and the things that you say. Yes. And so, if you are on a paid platform and you're going around calling people the N-word, running people down, and this is not on Xbox, but I don't know if you guys recall the situation where there was the young black girl who was playing Overwatch on PlayStation a couple months ago, and these guys were just like all kinds of racial jokes and whatnot.
Absolutely horrendous.
And you know what? There's no protection from that. Well, when you just only don't do group chat.
Real quick, time out. I just want. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, man, but I gotta address this. Vaughn, Vaughn says Xbox is government in this. What?
No.
Xbox is a private corporation, man. It's not owned by the United States of America. I'm sorry.
Our tax money does not pay for Xbox Live. I'm sorry.
Vaughn, I look, dude, I appreciate you coming in, hanging out with us live chat. I really do, but I can't co-sign that, man. Come on. Xbox is a private corporation. It's not funded by taxpaying dollars. It's not funded by the government.
They have rules to protect their customers. That is at the end of the day, it's their job and or responsibility to have rules in place that if you are a paying customer, you're paying the money for Xbox Live monthly, and someone says something horrendous like the N-word and makes you and is berating you because of your, again, race, creed, color, sexual orientation, or otherwise. You have to be protected by said corporation. It's their job to make sure that rules are in place to make sure that you can't do that to them again and or others.
I looked up the definition of free speech under the amendments because I was getting sidetracked by the comments, and it specifies in here. Okay, there's a couple things I want to point out. It says that categories of speech that are given lesser or no protection by the First Amendment include obscenity, as determined by the Miller test, fraud, child pornography, speech integral to illegal conduct, speech that incites imminent lawless action, and regulation of commercial speech such as advertisement. So it does not say anything in here about hate speech being protected.
You know, it just really comes down to this. Other people are paying for the service just like you. Anytime you start to say things that hinder someone else's experience, you cross the line, period. Now, every now and then we may trash talk. It's all fun and games. But if you're going around saying things that you know damn well you would not say to someone to their face because you will probably be picking up your jaw off the ground. If you're saying those kind of things, you just have really no grounds to be complaining about how Xbox is policing their platform. Period.
And there's another sentence in here I want to point out, that the Free Speech Amendment only prevents the government restrictions on speech, not restrictions imposed by private individuals or businesses unless they're acting on behalf of the government. So that means Xbox can do whatever the heck they want.
Like I said, if you feel triggered, like Salty said in the chat, or offended, I can tell you that you're gonna be painting yourself into a corner because Microsoft is doing this now publicly. Rest assured that PlayStation and Nintendo and every other developer that's making games that you play right now are going to be basically surrounding this guy and lifting him up. The support from the development community that includes all three, Nintendo and Sony, and of course Microsoft, they are going to get behind this in a big way. And if you're really closing your borders off and painting yourself into a corner if you think that, well, if Xbox is going to do this, I'm going to pull my support and I'm going to go to hang out with PlayStation because they have hate mongers and they're the best. No, the PlayStation community is just like the Xbox and the Nintendo community are fair communities. There is a small portion of each one of these platform communities that are the worst of humanity, that say horrendous things for a stupid piece of plastic.
Hey guys, I'm sorry to drop in and then leave.
Damn, come on, Slow-Mo.
Family has shown up, and I gotta get dinner ready. So let me go jump out real quick. But I just do want to say, hey, great topic, and guy in the chat, I'm sorry you have a different opinion on this, but maybe you want to read the Constitution sometime. Just in your free time when you're on the toilet, just read the Constitution, Google it, you see what it says. It'll be real education for you.
Slow-Mo, this is why
Talk to you guys later.
Thank you for the hot take, man.
Later, Slow-Mo.
Later, brother.
And there's also something in here that a lot of people are arguing. They felt like they could say whatever hate speech they wanted as free speech. Well, slander is not protected under the Amendment of Free Speech either. So on truths to harm others, slander is not a protected speech. Think about
beautiful,
that.
Clowns. This is a revelation. I want people to know that.
I wish I was on OBS right now where I could put some kind of special effects that what was it? Channel 4, The More You Know, NBC. Like right now,
knowing it's half the battle.
Yeah, knowing. Oh God, this. I'm sorry. You know what, guys? I am not someone who is. I don't have patience for ignorance. I just don't, and I really hold back a lot. On this podcast, trust me, I do. If Clowns can figure this stuff out, and he's looking this up, why can't the rest of you do this? I mean, if you're going to take a stance on something, at least do the research on it. I feel like, and I do this. I may have. Look, I think it's natural human reaction to have some kind of emotional response to things, but I think at times we have to kind of check that emotion and critically think and ask ourselves, what's the motivation here? Why am I feeling the way that I feel? What does the law say? And yada yada yada, right? And do some research. And people don't do that. That's the scary part. People don't take the time to research something like this. Clowns. I mean, thank you, man. I mean, you are probably just a quick Google search, I would imagine, right?
Oh yeah, it took me a matter of 3 seconds.
So 3 seconds, right? And this is the part that the part that really kills me. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I can understand people not understanding maybe what freedom of speech entails and the limitations of freedom of speech. We have the internet. Clown just said it took 3 seconds to find all this information out. Why can other people do that?
There's something
me.
There's something I'm gonna say. Hazardman in the chat, and he's inciting about the Connect spying on people and the whole NSA fiasco, rumor, conspiracy theory that was going on. People got so upset over that, but they failed to realize that the PS3 had rootkits in them to monitor stuff that you did and sent the information back to PlayStation in case you modified the system. So PlayStation was spying on you on PS3 and even on Sony CDs back in the day. I remember when I worked at Geek Squad, there was a big lawsuit against Sony because they would put bugs on your PC to make sure that you weren't ripping it or illegally uploading it to Napster or LimeWire or any other service.
That was huge. I remember that lawsuit. And look, I'm telling you, if you guys, I think Salty said this, because if I find out that Xbox is Live is recording my party chats, let me tell you, my friend, disconnect yourself from society right now, because anything that's connected to the internet, I can guarantee you,
there's a place somewhere.
The government's listening, and I'm telling you, post 9/11 changed everything, and they are listening. And they may be listening for security reasons, but also keep in mind they're listening for money reasons. Alexa listens to conversations that are going on in the house, whether or not she is on or off. Because
it's funny. I want to say something real quick, and sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But my wife and I were watching Sopranos, right? And we have Alexa in the bedroom. And I grew up in an Italian American family, so Sopranos was based on the Cavalcante family of New Jersey, loosely based on them. And I remember seeing similarities between different people that my dad knew. I didn't even know the names of the different people he knew. And I said something, and Alexa picked up the conversation, like recorded the whole thing. And 3 days later, I popped into my Alexa thing to see what I was listening to, and it repeated the whole conversation back to me. I was able to delete it, but I mean, it listened.
Yeah, no, it will, because they want to know. Amazon wants to know what potential things you're talking about that might benefit, sales, or might benefit consumer goods that they're advertising. I mean, think about it, like it sounds all gravy and everything, but just like Google selling, our, search history, selling analytics. I mean, that's what Alexa's doing. And look, Microsoft's doing it too. Sony's doing it too. There is money in power and information. That's the world we're living in right now.
Information brokerage.
Yes, information. Absolutely, clowns. Facebook is doing the same thing. Twitter's doing the same thing. I'm telling you, Hangouts right now, we're on Hangouts. They're doing the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the world we live in, and you have to be mindful of it. If you're not, you can't. I really firmly believe this. You can't say that, oh, I'm going to cut off one thing, because if you're going to cut off one thing, you have to cut everything off. You just have to.
We're living in, because obviously technology is advancing, and unfortunately, 50 years before 9/11, no one thought about this. Yeah. And we know for a fact what happened and what continues to happen with different cells within this country. That you think, oh, it's just a video game, it's a toy, right? It's a toy. No one's going to be monitoring, and unfortunately, that's the world we live in, folks. To protect you from horrific acts of violence and terrorism, this is what needs to happen. And if you're not doing anything wrong, I don't care who the hell's listening. And maybe maybe someone's gonna be like, well, that's a stupid way to think. Well, then it's my stupid way to think. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
Another thing I want to say is a lot of people didn't realize this, but I said this on Four Guys with Quarters way back in, was it 2014, 2015, when I signed up for the Windows 10 Insiders Edition. I actually read the fine agreement on there because there was a lot of conspiracy theories about it. And in the fine agreement, the terms of service, it actually gives Microsoft the right to record with Cortana or even Word. If you type or say anything that could be violent, like violence, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, it can record them, store the information, and if they deem necessary, if they deem that it's a threat, they will contact law enforcement. It is in the terms of service.
Jesus.
This is going back all the way back in 2013, 2014. Folks, wake up.
Yeah,
this is the future.
Yeah. I
Wake
tell
up,
you what,
people.
man.
That's all I can say is, you know, don't be a hateful piece of shit. How about that? Let's call it like it is. Don't be a hate monger because someone is something you don't like. Keep it to yourself. Write it down on a piece of paper like a caveman and put it in your pocket or up your ass, wherever you want, and put it away.
Somebody says they can record your thoughts. No, not your thoughts per se, but what you think out loud.
Yes, yes. Well, listen, gentlemen, I got to run. Because obviously I like slow-mo. I'm going to put dinner together for my wife and I. But I want to thank everyone who came out to listen to this. This was a very unusual show, but a show that I think is should be listened to everyone. It's very important. And I'm going to be bringing. I don't know if I'm going to how far into politics I'm going to bring the next Xbox Factor podcast, but I'm going to talk about Phil Spencer's statement, what I think it means to the Xbox platform moving forward, and why I think everyone, and I mean everyone within the industry, is going to rally around this guy, and it's going to become the Me Too movement, a movement of gaming, where protecting, again, I never understood how this went off the road, where protecting someone's rights is looked upon as if it's wrong. It blows my freaking mind.
Yeah, and you know what, Boom? I'm glad that you joined us, man. I definitely appreciate your perspective because you offer a different perspective from law enforcement. You guys are the ones that are supposed to adhere to the law of the land, enforce the law of the land.
Absolutely, yes, and we have to hold ourselves accountable for everything that we do. And exactly. I did for 21 years, and I still do to this day.
And protect citizens. I mean, that's the end of the day what you guys are in charge to do. So I definitely appreciate your point of view. Clowns, dude. I mean, I really appreciate your point of view too, man, and really setting kind of the record straight, man. Like I thought, like when your Twitter comment, I was like, dude, dead on. I mean, that's all that needed to be said. But I wanted to have you on because I was glad that you said what you said because it needed to be said, and it's coming from a place of truth, and so I appreciate that, man. Thank you again, man, for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on that note, guys, we are going to wrap up. Please, everyone, again, thank you to the live chat, everyone who stopped in and hung out with us tonight. Just a great conversation, really. I mean, whether or not we agree with you or disagree with you, we certainly appreciate the comments. We really do. I do want to, give a quick shout out to my guests here. Clowns, you are part of Four Guys with Quarters. Please let everyone know where they can find you.
We're doing the show now on Monday nights at 5 p.m. It's Assassin, Taylor, and I, but you guys can all check us out there and catch the replays on iHeartRadio. We're on their website as well.
Awesome, man. Boom. You have many shows.
Yeah, one of the busiest guys in on YouTube. Yes,
you are. I gotta say, I was kind of sad to hear that you were leaving Crossfire, man, last night. Excuse me. Because I think you have been a great panel member on that show. I know.
Thank you.
I know you still will make guest appearances, man. But dude, I mean, seriously, you're one of the hardest workers in the business, man. Definitely appreciate a lot of the effort that you put into this. Please let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you want to talk to me, whether it's mean or not, hit me up on Twitter at Mr. BoomstickXL. DM is open to everyone. And understand I will have a discussion with you, but the minute it turns mean or distasteful, I will block you. And I don't block a lot of people. I really don't like doing that. But everyone's, like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but you have to be fair, be fair thinking, and we can have a conversation till the cows come home. And if you're interested in lots of live content, I don't do as many videos as I used to do because I'm more live behind the mic. I think that's where I best serve the community as a whole when it comes to gaming, and I feel better talking live because it's more pressure I put on myself to make sure that these shows run smooth and that each show is significantly different from the other one, so that when you tune in, you are entertained. At the end of the day, this is a form of entertainment, and I'm going to keep doing it as long as people keep asking for it. In regards to leaving Crossfire, like I said last night, it was more of a family related decision than it was anything else. I mean, Mooch and I were very good friends. I've said this 1,000 times before, and I'll say it 1,000 times after. He allowed me the podium to have a voice within this community, and I took the ball and ran with it. and I'm always going to be grateful and thankful for the opportunities he's provided for me. But in regards to the fact that I'm leaving is because Friday nights is something I've taken away from my wife for 2 years, which is a long time. And I really want to return those Friday nights where we can go to the movies, we can go out to dinner, we can order in and just stay in our PJs and watch movies, and or go out do the shopping upstate, which we normally used to do on Friday nights, leaving us the whole weekend to just relax. And that's the main reason. I am working on some secret projects that a few people, very few people know about. I'm not ready to announce anything right now, but I will be making an announcement towards the end of the summer of something very exciting that's going to be happening to the Double Barrel Gaming channel. And if you're interested, like I said, stop by, hit the like button, hit the dislike button, sub, don't sub, but you're going to get quality gaming talk for every show.
No doubt, man. No doubt. And again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this Brap Rant. I really appreciate it. And a big shout out to Slow-Mo, who joined us for a little bit. Please catch us next week, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our regular scheduled Brap podcast. Come hang out with us. Great content in terms of gaming chat. We don't do any of the console wars nonsense, but come check us out if you haven't done so already. Hit that like button, subscribe. And other than that, everyone enjoy the rest of the weekend. We will see you guys on Wednesday.
All right,
unless I decide to do another Brap Rant.
Yes. Love the Brap Rants.
Yeah, you know what? I got to be here for more of these. These are awesome.
Yeah, they're great.
No, I love it, man. Dude, it's all off the cuff, man. It's like when I see something and I'm like, the Brap Rants have always been like about social commentary and gaming. So anytime I see something like that I'm passionate about, I'm going to talk. So I may be on the Iron Lords podcast tomorrow as well. There's another kind of interesting topic that I may discuss with them regarding Cyberpunk 2077 that I'm kind of on the fence about, but I may be on the Iron Lords podcast to discuss it tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that as well. But gentlemen, thank you again. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Take care, everybody.
Later, guys.